Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster for day number 11. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So, yes, it's day number 11, July the 21st, of my top 31 albums that introduced me to these artists or bands. In this case, it's a band. This is the series we're running for the month of July, in which I'm picking 31 albums that introduced me to these bands, and I've ranked them according to how much I like the album and the band. Well, maybe not the band, but the album and their introduction to me as a band. I had about 80 altogether at one point, but have since narrowed it down to the 31 for the month. So the band today is Kiss, the album Kiss Alive. This is the album that introduced me not only to Kiss as a band, but to rock music as a genre. Up until this point, I had a couple of kind of what we used to call tranny tapes, where we would record songs off the radio that we heard, AM radio too, so not very good quality. And I had a few kind of BTO and a Black Sabbath song on there, but I didn't really even know who these bands were, and there was no identification. My friend also had a K-Tel album that had a bunch of rock songs on them, and a couple of the songs that stood out were "Oh What a Night" from April Wine and "Paranoid" from Black Sabbath. But this was really the first album I owned and the first band that I was really introduced to, because I began to collect their albums. By the time I got my first album that wasn't a Kiss album, which was Boston, I already had 2 or 3 in the bank. So, yeah, absolutely a killer album. Maybe the best version of Kiss here. To me, Kiss is like The Who in many ways. They're much better live than they are studio-wise. Not that there's anything wrong with their studio stuff, but I just think this album has a much higher degree of energy and gives you a much better feel for the band as a whole. So this album came out, of course, in 1975, was a massive hit for them, launching their careers to new heights here. I have had this album for a long time. I had it in vinyl. I've had it in, actually may not have had it in anything other than vinyl, but the vinyl one was so worn out and cracked and scratches and everything on it that it just sounded like popcorn when you played it. So, yeah, it's got 2 discs. It's a 2-disc volume. The side 1 is absolutely killer with Deuce, Strutter, Got to Choose, Hotter Than Hell, and Firehouse. Absolutely killer. And then the second side, not much further behind, I Do Love Nothing to Lose, Come On and Love Me, and Parasite. Not a big fan of She. Never really liked that one that much. Then you got the back album, which is almost as good. Watching You, one of my favorite Kiss songs of all time. 100,000 Years, you get to see Peter Criss probably at his zenith here at this point in time. Black Diamond, you get to hear him sing again. Absolutely killer, his vocals. Then you have the back side of this album, which many consider to be the best part of this album. To me, the bottom 3 tracks, Cold Gin, Rock and Roll All Night, and Let Me Go Rock and Roll, just completely burned out. Can't even listen to them at all. The only one that held up was Rock Bottom, which is actually one of my favorite Kiss tracks. So this album really introduced me to the band, and every time I look at this picture on the back, it just reminds me of the way things were in the 1970s. So encapsulating of that time period on this album. So, and the band members all at this point in time still getting along fairly well with each other. It wasn't until Destroyer came in they started to kind of drift apart, but the sound was raw, heavy, it's a hard rock. Stage show was among the best in the world. And they were at this time period growing to become the monster band that they would become, and one of the most iconic bands of all time, and one of the most loved bands of all time, and one of the most hated bands of all time. And there doesn't seem to be much middle ground for these guys. So anyways, this is album number 11 here on the 21st of July of my top 31 favorite albums that introduced me to these bands. And Yeah, absolutely great. I love the series so far. I hope you're enjoying it. If you've got any comments about it, put it in the comment section. Don't forget to hit the notification bell, hit the like and subscribe. That helps me a lot as well. And from Prog Monster, I want to wish you a great evening and a great day, and we will see you again tomorrow with another episode. So take care and goodbye.